Welcome to Unhinged and Bumbled Up, where you can
join serial dater Phil.
That's me. And dating detoxer Liz.
That's me. Welcome to the world of online dating.
What can you expect in the Unhinged and Bumbled Up podcast?
Dating do's, don'ts and disasters.
What we and our guests would gladly chuck in the 2020 dating bin to be gone forever.
What real people really think about those tricky dating dilemmas.
Awesome dating trivia. You'll never know when it'll come in handy for that pub quiz.
Top tips and tricks from our awesome guest experts who luckily know a little more about dating than we do.
So if you've ever had a dating disaster,
ignored the red flags.
If your dating life is less successful than the chances of there being a Cats 2, then you're in the right place.
Do we know what we're talking about? No! Our dating lives are both utter shite. So join us as we talk all things dating. The good, the bad, and the sorry, there's just no spark. Hello and welcome to the Unhinged and Bumbled Up podcast. This is part 2 of our episode called Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. Hopefully you will have listened to part 1, which came out a few days ago, and this is part 2. The episode features Richard Hill. You will know Richard from First Dates Hotel, and maybe you're one of his many Instagram followers, but we loved having Richard on the show, and to be honest, we could have talked for hours. We ended up with a really long episode, so we decided to split it in 2 parts, and we hope you enjoy part 2.
Now, I remember us speaking when we had our little chat about female-led relationships. And,
yeah, really interested in it.
And you were really interested. So I went away and did a bit of research because I'm not the fountain of all knowledge all by far. And you know what? I actually really like the idea. It is really, I feel it's...
So what did you take away as like kind of like the principle, the backbone of it?
So it was a bit more that men and women both did the housework. It didn't matter who earned more or anything like that. The woman could earn more, the man could earn more. There's nothing wrong with that. And the decision making, it was both, but the women had more decision making.
Led rather than
yes.
Yeah.
So Ricky, tell us, like, how would you explain female-led relationships? Because this is a pretty new concept to me. I've never really heard of it before. Tell me about kind of, and for our listeners, what's your perception, or how would you explain it?
Female-led relationships, something I've been reading about on the basis that I, with a lot of my friends, managed to pretty much clusterfuck ourselves on an annual basis. You know, relationship-wise, just at work, on every single level. And we were talking about this. Anyway, I was talking to a particular friend about this, and he was talking about female-led relationships, and it led me to down this reading hole for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. It's where the dynamic in a relationship, when it comes to the general determination of factors, slightly leans more towards the female than towards the male. It has nothing to do with power. It has nothing to do with finance. It has nothing to do with sex. We're talking about literally just generally the kind of like decision-making aspect or the kind of direction of the relationship. It tends to lean towards the woman than it does towards the man. What does that specifically mean to me? My grandma and granddad. My granddad went out to work. You know, my granddad was a mechanic. My granddad, lived next door to a mine. His granddad was a bare knuckle boxer. You know, my granddad was a lot of things. But he was also very much half of a household. My grandma may have worked part-time, but she also raised 3 children. My grandma used to support other families in terms of their welfare, social care, a bit of counselling, kind of these kind of activities, bits and pieces. And when it came to making decisions, generally, she got her head around their kind of future a bit better than he did. So he's perfectly capable of deciding whether he wants to go for a beer, whether he wants to go out, whether he wants to have a hobby, have an interest. None of this stuff is what we're talking about. What we're talking about is in terms of their relationship, she had a slightly better idea where they might live in determination to schools. She had a slightly better idea what they might do in terms of like planning children and family planning kind of stuff. And it's not to say he's without opinion. It's to say that she kind of just simply led it. Now, I would say that every relationship has a lead in it. Between the pair of you, you're not exactly 50-50, ever. What I would say is in this case, you might just say, try and find somebody. For me, maybe try and find you know, a girl that might be a little bit more confident in determining some of these key factors, or helping me make what I would say is the right decisions for me. I want someone who knows me and loves me and cares about me and thinks about my future and knows that I'm invested in a relationship and wants to help me create the relationship in the future that I want. And simply by sometimes, you know, every now and again on some of these big decisions, maybe just swinging it a little bit and saying, you know what, I really think this would be the way, and just saying, well, in this case, I'll probably defer to your possibly better judgment.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And what you've kind of put forward there more or less puts words to something which I have thought about for a long time, and is a pretty appealing concept, because I do think that even nowadays, even with the level of equality we've managed to achieve, there is a tendency in relationships for the man to still be like a
male-led relationship.
Yeah, and for the guy to kind of get the final say. And I've definitely been in that relationship rather recently, where if we have two different opinions, his opinion is always going to win out. And I'm a super strong-willed, hellishly opinionated person, like to a fault. And even in that context, there's something about, I don't know, the ingrained dynamics, which means that he still gets the final say. And maybe that's a quirk of that particular relationship, but also I kind of don't think it is. I think I certainly know a lot of females who've had a similar relationship where for some reason the guy still kind of wears the trousers, not in an overt way, but in that background way. And I think that's really interesting that, you know, it's not that the other person doesn't have an opinion. It's that one person is kind of the respected leader or decision maker. And I think some people are natural leaders and some people maybe less so.
For me, like, as I say, I can't express it strongly enough. Like, some of the best relationships I've ever seen in my life, when I think back of them, seem to be this way. In our house, in my parents' house, they've been together 50 years. My dad's a stronger character, but I would say my mum probably led a lot of their relationship, you know, and supported my dad in sometimes at key points, just supported him in helping making decisions that were good for him in the future. She didn't take the decision away from him. She just gave him support and encouraged him perhaps one way. And equally, my grandma and my granddad were together for an exceptionally long time and very, very happy. And I would say that it was very different in hers. She literally ran that house. That isn't to say he couldn't just walk out and go for a pint. We're not talking about those details. But for example, family planning in their case was a really, really big one where they had struggled having children. She decided they were going to adopt children. She kind of just got him on board with that and was like, if this is what if you want to have a family and if you want to be a father, if you want this future, then this is what we need to do. And we kind of need to be doing it now. Yeah. So, you know, what do you reckon? That's not making someone's decision. It's putting that kind of like
putting that suggestion there and seeing what the outcome is.
A little bit, a little bit. And I feel like some of the best relationships, I don't know if you think back to some of the relationships in your life, perhaps, that might work that way with a little bit more subtlety than simply thinking, you know, I'm in charge. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case. I don't think my grandma was in charge of my grandfather by any means.
No, it was more equal level, but it was the case of the opinions matter of everybody in the relationship rather than one person having the decision, the final say.
But wouldn't you say the same thing about many male-led relationships that you know? Though healthy male-led relationships in the same way, that you wouldn't say that guy steamrolls or all that cause problems. The healthy relationships that I know are simply like, it can go the other way just as healthily. I'm just saying that for me personally, I have tripped over myself and caused myself problems more times than I can now count. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, what do I want to do? Well, first things first is I love and always have loved strong, creative, articulate women, like women who've got an opinion, women who want to say something. I've always said, I don't want to take someone with me. I want someone who wants to go with me. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, that's always been the way of things. If you then add trying to be the leader in that relationship, I'm considering that maybe that's the problem. I'm trying to fit this role of being in charge with a super strong, super clever, super like creative force. And I'm not meant for that task. Maybe in actual fact, I'm meant to be the supporting factor in that task. And I just don't see why this is not something we're all considering a bit more often occasionally. Not everyone's meant to be like a leader in every circumstance. I can lead in many circumstances. And you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think, I'm considering that maybe this one I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And also, like, when you try to squish that woman into the passenger role, that's never going to work, because it's not going to work for you trying to be the leader, and it's definitely not going to work for her trying to kind of be led.
So my question to you, how many times have you felt frustrated that a choice hasn't been made, or frustrated that the decision point that's been ignored, or that, you know, the relationship's gone in a direction because he's let it rather than him driving it? And how many times have you thought to yourself, I could be doing that, I could be making those decisions and would be better for it? Continually.
Because I know best, obviously. No, kidding. Yeah, I know. I think it's a very, very familiar dynamic, because I am very outspoken. I am very strong, strong personality. I have a very strong opinion about things, and I'm very decisive. And yeah, I like to make decisions. I'm a very like forward-looking person. Like, I hate to coast. Coasting is my worst thing. My idea of a hellish life is like bumbling along, seeing what happens and being passive about it. But because I'm constantly going, how about this? We could do this, like forward looking, driving, then I actually often feel that the other person, if they aren't comfortable with that level of kind of me leading or driving, end up actually actively resisting that and being like, no. And it almost feels like a no for the sake of no. And maybe it's not, but it's very much a sense of resisting being influenced or led.
One of my best friends is in a marriage, and you know, a lot of the guys give me a bit of sticking now and again and being like, mate, your missus wears the trousers and stuff. I remember one time, quite consistently, this was back when I used to have a beer sometimes after work. His missus would text and he'd be like, oh, here she is on the phone, I best get off, guys, and drink this one up. And he'd get a bit of stick for it, and he didn't mind. Like, she didn't give a shit and he didn't give a shit, but they were happy to know that she might have been a bit of a dragon. And I said to him one time, like, the secret is that she's not made you go home at all. Like, you want to go home. You love being at home. You love being at home more than you love being with us. And he went, mate, I don't want to stay another hour. She's messaged me because she knows I'm literally happier at home with her having a glass of wine than I am in here with you having a beer. I've had enough beers with enough lads over the years that I'm done. I'm all right with it. If I don't do it again, it'd be okay. On the other hand, I would like to be sat in my living room with my wife having a glass of wine. So when she actually texts me, and she doesn't mind taking that hit of being like, oh, she's a bit of wearing the trousers. And he said, she don't give a shit, because ultimately all she cares about is that I'm happy and I'm happiest at home. And if I just turn around and go, guys, I'm not interested anymore, I've had one, but you're all boring, which is ultimately how he feels. Mm-hmm. That's not that socially acceptable. And she's okay to just drop him a message after about an hour and say, he'll be ready for coming home now. That's a female-led relationship in my sense, where she knows what's best for him. These days, that guy, he drinks less, he eats better, he spends time with his family, he loves what he does. He's just a happy fucking guy. That, I will not name him, but he's just a very happy man. And I would suggest a lot of the factors that have made him in this place, in this lifestyle, in this family that he adores, is because his other half has taken a little bit of, additional step to tailor it that way. Mm-hmm. And he's more than appreciative of it.
And then it just means everybody in that relationship's happy.
All you want is your mate to be happy. And he's got his, and fair play to it.
Next, we're going to move on to the game, because we spoke about this before, didn't we, about the game. For those people who don't know about the game, Richard, can you explain what the game was and how it has become an annoyance?
So, I don't know, in the mid-2000s or something like that, some blokes who were probably in New York, who are probably arseholes, created a series of basic psychological manipulations that we could work with women in order to make yourself more likely to sleep with them or date them or whatever it was that you wanted to do. They called it the game, and they prescribed that they could teach people different things that they could do. And they used to be like it's just awful to talk about that people like actually did this, but like ways of like for example, like dressing down them or undermining their confidence in such a way that you might be able to then capitalize on that and win them over in another sense, or that you could compliment a girl in such a way that it would make you more attractive to a wider group. And then I don't know, you've all heard it. It's just this horror story of what can I say? Empty manipulation, like just very transactional. Except if it's a transaction, again, it's probably a robbery. It has no respect for anybody, including the people that actually did it. Like, it just, to me, I'm like the guys. Like, again, like not only are we talking. Let's just put to one side how we're treating these women that you profess to really be interested in and care about and want to have a relationship with. Let's just ignore that for 1 second. Like, look at how they're talking to you and who they're encouraging you to be. This is a horror story. And yeah, we just said it like that kind of thing of getting the bin. And the reason that came up is because, like I was saying, it's very easy if you've been on some dates and you're quite analytical in bits and pieces to kind of figure out some steps and processes that make you effective in dating. I think as humans, we all try and figure out behaviors that work. Except, like, again, this is a classic thing. Once you've been on a lot of dates, you can kind of accidentally go on dates and be like, I'm accidentally successfully having a date again here. I've told that story always goes down well. And if we go there and do this, that goes down well. And generally, if I wear this is pretty, this and this. And before you know it, you're at a certain point in the date and you're like, you've almost played the game.
Yeah.
And I said, it should just get in the bin.
100% agree. But I think as well, there's multiple ways of getting a particular outcome, right? And I think the fundamental problem with the game is that the method or the crux of it is about making somebody feel less than.
It's psychological and manipulation, isn't it?
Yeah. The whole thing about, I'll make fun of her about something, like the whole negging thing and the, compliment her mate, like the whole principle is to make a woman feel less than so that she wants to chase you. And like, what an odd premise to build something on. And yes, it gets a certain outcome, but so does making a woman feel amazing. And why are we choosing, like, it seems so weird to me to choose the option where you make somebody feel like shit in the process of getting to know you.
I was talking to a friend of ours the other day because one of my friends has a podcast that talks to different I don't know, authors, I suppose, intellectuals, but this particular author was a psychologist, behavioral psychologist, and they had done some work with dating. And one of the statistics that they found was that on Tinder, 80% of women swipe right for 20% of men, there or thereabouts. The takeaway fact from that is that if you're in that 20% of men, you're overwhelmed 4-1 with fairly, high prospects. On the other hand, if you're part of the 80% of men, you are arguing over 20% then of women. If you're lucky, because if you're in the 80% of men, you'd assume then that some men have a slightly higher hit rate and slightly lower hit rate. The process of therefore even having a match is flattening for 4/5 of men. And here's one for you, don't do it. But I sat next to one of my friends whilst he was swiping on Tinder, and I just was like, this is a very surreal experience to watch. This is like not good. And I've seen it a couple of times. One guy I knew just swept right for absolutely everybody because his likelihood was so low of finding a match that he was better just watching telly and swiping right for an hour on 800 people, of which he might hope to get a couple of matches. That is an awful feeling for a person to have. And then the other side of it is where you do swipe right for people that you generally see some interest in and you never get a match. And I feel like, and then if you do get in their inbox, the chances are they still remain within the 80% of women that are going for 20% of men, and you never get past a conversation if you get a conversation. So then if we just bump that up a step and then you take that into a bar or a night out, and we assume that most women on a night out don't want bothering. They're not there to talk to you. They're there to see their friends, they're there to dance, or the people that are already around them. Like, brilliant. I never meet anyone on Tinder. I never get past the talking stage. If I go to a bar, I don't know how to talk to women. And if I do know how to talk to women, I don't get a chance to. like they are screwed. And I'm not saying this on a woe is men at all. What I'm saying is this is where you can then create a business, a really effective business about manipulating women. Because these guys at this point will buy anything. They are suffering.
Because you've got an 80% of the market.
And interestingly, when this discussion was up on my friend's podcast, a guy wrote underneath, he said, Chris, if you would just hurry up and get married, I would be happier in life. And Chris actually bothered to respond. And when, I don't know who you think you're talking to, but that kind of thing is just ridiculous nonsense. And the guy went, well, it's ridiculous nonsense from a PhD behavioral psychologist. So Chris followed it up and was like, okay, right. And the guy said, let me break this down for you, Chris. If this was 50 years ago, we would be in a village or a township. You would be just as attractive as you are now, but we're going to remove Tinder. We're going to remove dating and bars and the rest of it. All of a sudden, there are 4/5 of women are interested in meeting you. You may take and kiss a number of them. You may go on dates with a few of them in whatever the day and age was. Except the chances are, by the time you were 23 or 24, you would have settled on one of them. And simply by taking yourself out of the market and the other guys in that 20% taking themselves out of the market, we now have an opportunity to simply talk to a woman. And like he said, I'm a good guy. I'm an intellectual. I've got a career. I've got aspirations. I'm a good person. But I will never, ever get to talk to someone unless you lot would stop dating multiple
people.
Yeah.
Till you lot fuck them right off.
And like he said, as a behavioral psychologist, why would you ever do it? As a man, you're engineered that you're like, oh, I have an abundance of options. Oh, shall I settle down and do some awkward conversations, or shall I keep going on successful dates?
Yeah.
So, like he said, we're in this horrible world where these guys are just getting screwed. And by other guys who don't realize they're screwing them. And you can just take advantage of that situation, I think, if you're a business person, and write a book like The Game. And there'll be a ton of men who will be like, I feel so at odds, I will do anything. Yeah. And I'm not excusing that act. I've just told you, I think it's disgusting. But at the same time, I can understand how the circumstances arrived to which some people would capitulate.
Yeah, 100%. So, question for you, Vicky. We just had an episode about this, actually, about dating with children.
Yeah. I try not to take them on dates. I try and not take Samson on dates very often. unless like with the key factor. I mean, otherwise.
Puppy, child, you cover all circumstances.
Hey, I create beautiful offspring, just saying. He's
just
right
putting it out there. I'm just genetically very sound. So tell us about your experience of dating when you've got a little one.
So most girls are gonna say no because you've got a child. And then if you get into, so for example, I'm 36. If I meet generally someone between, say, like early 30s and late 30s, the chances are if it goes successfully for 3 or 4 months, we'll go 3 or 4 months, and then they're going to say to me something like, my aspirations for my life were always that I'd meet the love of my life and we'd settle down and we'd have children. I hadn't really kind of truly considered what it would be like to be like a stepmom in any way, or, to not have the first experience with my partner being our first experience. So you've already been through this, you've done the babies, you've done the hospital, and I feel like in some way I want to share that with someone for the first time.
Okay.
And I go, okay, that's cool. Or one girl said that she didn't think I could love another child, like a first child, with her as much as I could ever love Samson. So basically, like that's like especially between like 30 and late 30s, that's a really, you get 3 or 4 months down the line, and that's probably going to happen. In like late 20s, they generally like find me inaccessible because, I have a fairly structured life around looking after my son. I'm not a weekend dad. I have Samson 3 nights a week. And I look after him whenever I can on top of that. So I'm very much like 50-50 where possible, which means that, say you're 26, 27, 28, you've got a nice flat in Manchester. By this point, your job's pretty high level. You work in the hours, you put in the time in, you've got your social life. All of a sudden you're meeting a guy that's got a few boundaries, like not boundaries, that's the wrong phrase, because they're not boundaries, they're more literal, like structural edges. I can be a little bit inaccessible. And if you're in your early 20s, you think I'm like an older guy, I'm really hot, I'm super loving, and you don't even care that Samson's alive because you'll never meet him anyway, and you would really like to have sex.
Got it. It's pretty sound breakdown. What if, just hypothetically, obviously, so obviously we've talked about this a little bit. Phil's got a little boy. I don't have any kids, don't want any kids, perfectly like other people's kids. Have you ever dated anybody who doesn't want kids, and how did that go?
Yes, and it was like actually pretty fine, because I think they saw that like I have a son and he has a wonderful mother, and that there was never a requirement to be a mum in this relationship. And it's genuine, like, and that was not a problem. So we dated for a while, and the reason we stopped dating wasn't to do with children. And I found that actually, I've been like unbelievably lucky that, and I'm not just saying this here, I literally say it all the time. It's frightful, like how many good women I've managed to meet in my life, because like this is a perfect example where we just went our separate ways, but she's someone who didn't want children. And the fact that she could see that she didn't need to take that role in our relationship was a perfect reflection on both mine, hopefully, and his mother's parenting, that, we look after our son and we work and we get stuff done. Having said that, like I said, if we ended up moving in together and living together, you'd play a massive part in Samson's life.
Yeah.
You'd see a massive part in Samson's life as you being this, whatever you wanted to be to him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need anything. But that isn't to say his life wouldn't be vastly, vastly better if somebody wanted to join me and be part of it. Do you know what I mean?
Now, before we move to the next segment, have you heard about our giveaway? We are giving away a bundle worth up to the value of £300. And if you're listening and already pressed the subscribe button, you are part the way there to entering. So head over to our Instagram after the show. Now, back to the episode.
The 2020 bin.
This segment is called the 2020 bin, basically the modern room 101. Each week we'll be asking our guest to chuck something they hate about dating in the 2020 bin and give us a reason why.
So, Richard, now we've reached the 2020 bin, basically like room 101. You tell us what you want to chuck in, discuss the reasons behind it, and then me and Liz will make the decision whether it goes or not.
To be honest, at this point, I would just throw in like all dating apps, just all of them. I've tried them all. I hate them all. And I specifically hate the message that just says, hey. What do you want me to do with that? I am a strong, independent, articulate woman.
Hey.
Or like all the others. Yeah. How about with a little waving emoji? I feel like that adds a certain something.
The gifts. The gifts that come along, and it's like
the gifts. Basically, I had a series of rules with dating apps. So if you just said hey, that's immediately a block. You're out of the inbox.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a hey, how are you? That's out of the button box. If they asked me what I had for dinner in any of the first messages at all, that's out of the box. What else did we have?
How's your day is one of my pet peeves.
We had, so do you know, like you have pictures with guys with fish immediately. As soon as you get a picture.
What is it?
That's out. That's out. Well, from the girl's perspective, if it's a group picture and I can't tell who you are, that's out.
That's out.
Because like, and this isn't just me being like arrogant. This is me being like, I ain't got time, man. I ain't got time
to investigate who you are and figure out where you are in that photo.
Anyone who puts any sort of like bio that says like influencer, media, that's gone. We're getting rid of that. I haven't got time for that either. There's just so many. I can't tell you the dislike I have for dating apps. And I wish the world was a place where I wish we could all pretend that you can actually just go meet someone outside. You can't walk up to someone in a bar and meet them and date them. That's never going to happen. Get over it. But also, Dating apps don't work.
So I feel like the moral of this whole episode is like we're all fucked, basically.
No, we're not. We're not. What we need is the opposite. Like, I hate lockdown. What we need is to start socializing on a fucking human level, as if we've come through 70,000 years of progress. At this point, what I would like to do is find myself consistently and regularly in a room with some people I like and some people I don't know. That's how I'm going to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Some people I like and some people I don't know. So, for example, if I've got a mate and my mate says, my friend is playing in a band on Saturday at this place, do you fancy coming with me? I'd be like, absolutely fantastic. Because the chances are, if his friend's in a band, it's going to be a smallish band. Therefore, the people who are supporting the gig are probably only going to be friends of the band. If he is friends of the band and they are actually genuinely a band, they're all probably pretty similar. So we've got a type of person now outlined. And if they all bring a plus one or two couple of people, the chances are you're only a couple of steps away in personality and character type from them. In which case, in the broadest sense, I'm going to like most people in that room.
Yeah.
In which case, I also might be able to talk to someone in that room. Can we repeat this with the books that I like, the films that I watch, the theatre I go to, the music I listen to, and just mates being mates? For example, we've got a 30th next week, but the missus can't go. Do you fancy coming down in a couple of beers? Like, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there. Again, and I'm not saying like you bring strangers to a 30th very often, but why couldn't we do that? Why couldn't that happen? If a couple of my paired up mates were like, sorry, but Claire don't want to come, so I was thinking about just bringing my buddy, if that's okay. I know you said there's two. I'm like, yeah, man, bring them down. Again, they're going to be just like you. Bring them on. Let's do it. We need to be in a room with people that we're generally friends with. And all these people that are like in relationships, stop cock blocking us. Invite your single friends.
100%.
Yes.
People go to the gyms for this reason. I get that. People start to sign up for a gym because they want to get out of their social circle. I mean, my sister now has been with a guy for a long time, really happy. But my sister was like, Rebecca was like pursuant of the right guy. And she did every strategy under the sun. And she used to join clubs and join places where people go. And but the point being is that I think that's the most admirable aspect of that. Because again, she's like, I'm not going on a swipe right fest. This is ridiculous. Yeah. I'll try and put myself in places where I like people. And hopefully in one of those, that's where somebody will be. And it does require, though, that you to get outside of your zone of comfort. For example, I used to, a couple of single friends, but even my sister, I used to have military dues at work where we'd have black tie dinners and stuff. So I've invited my sister, I invited a couple of my friends, because genuinely, one of my friends, she likes to come to CrossFit competitions because she loves CrossFit, loves fit guys, and not like in a perfect way. She's like, I like guys who have discipline, who take care of themselves. I like guys who are competitive, and generally they probably have a day job like you do. So if I go to a CrossFit comp and you know them and they get along, then, so I've loads of times been like, yeah, I'm coming up competing. Why don't you come with me for the weekend and we'll introduce you some people. Like, I know that sounds like such a weird thing to say to you.
No, but like the friends of friends and the like overlapping and expanding social circles rather than like two total randomers who have no way of knowing if they have anything even in common, trying to strike up a conversation.
I would love it if I went to a competition and we were just, as you do, you don't have to forcefully introduce it to people, but you can't help but see people, man, I've seen you for ages. This is my friend, this Stingy, but we go back from this. All it takes is that one person where they meet them and they kind of go, hello, maybe I'll continue this conversation extra on for a couple of minutes. And you never know, when we get home, I might drop a message and say, how do you do? Yeah. That is like, why can't that be I hate. Please, would you put in the bin?
I really want to, but what it means is anything that gets put in the bin, I have to get rid of. And currently,
the ego and the bedroom cannot survive without that app.
Currently, I'm doing research for our future episodes and can't delete.
Market research.
I've been doing some research.
What we can chuck in the bin. What we can chuck in the bin, though, is the haze, the group photos, and everything that you hate with profiles. Yeah, we normally only do one thing, but for you, because we can't delete the whole dating apps, will delete those sections of things
Well,
that you don't like.
I'll tell you, I used to, this is really bad. Do you want to talk about the game? I said, you break it. Maybe it's my background in intelligence. Maybe it's been Asperger. Maybe it's been whatever. I used to be able to write profiles and make them really good.
Yeah.
Like hacking Tinder is hilarious. One of my friends gave me, I remember one time was like, just gave me my phone and I was like, watch this. And in the morning we changed a couple of his pictures around and I was like, right, first things first is we need like a bold picture. We need to give an immediate image, which is a yay or a nay. I was like, this is my friend of mine, 6'7". I was like, you're 6'7". So what I'm going to do is we're going to find a picture of you, ideally in a suit. And we're going to see it ideally where it's you as the solo person. There's no question who this person is. It's you. But I need some people around so that these girls know you a big guy, okay? Because they look, let's be honest, 80-20 rule, 80% of women like a tall guy. So we get in that picture. Second picture, boom. All I want your picture of you is laughing. I don't care where it is, what you're doing, topless, shirt on, shirt off. We don't need any of this. I need a picture of you laughing. And this needs to be an honest laugh, ideally like a candid moment. So we found that picture, banged that up. And then we went for a hobby. And I was like, let's not have a holiday. He was like, I've got some good holiday pictures. No, forget all that. We need some sort of hobby. And ideally, one that's extremely accessible. Have you been on a hike recently? Have you been up a hill? Have you been anywhere? Have you been on a bicycle ride? So we picked out one of them. And I was like, them are 3 pictures. First one, Jesus, he's quite tall. Flipping it. Oh, lovely. He smiles and laughs. Fantastic. He's not a murderer. Third picture, oh, and he's got a life. This is brilliant. Then we looked in the thing and he'd written like an actual bio of things that he liked and disliked.
Imagine.
All of that. That can all go. We're opening with love a coffee in the morning. First thing. Really passionate about my work and progressing myself in the future. But keep it super general. Notice you know what actual job you have. Underneath, I wouldn't say that I'm a fitness guy, but I don't mind a trip to the gym. And then just a couple of little bits, like add-on ones. And I was saying like this, what we're aiming for really is a horoscope. We're aiming to say enough that it has relevance to every individual that sees it, but turns none of them off. Because we need swipe rights. The other thing we need to know is the algorithm is going to work for you. The more swipe rights you get, the more you're going to be presented at the top of the pile for the next people that are coming.
And the more you log on.
It doesn't matter that you're being swipe right people that initially that don't matter to you as a person. What matters is that you get enough swipe rights and matches that you start banging up the algorithm and presenting first on the next ones. Then we can go from there. Like that morning, he had like a doctor message him and somebody else. I was like, this is how fickle Tinder is and why I hate.
It's like a formula.
If you ever need a career change, then an online dating coach would be amazing at it.
Also,
or offline.
Phil's just written down literally everything you just said. Like, so sorry, what was that bit again? What do I do on the second
I've got
picture?
it all recorded. Don't worry. It's coming out of the podcast. I can listen to it every day.
So empty and fickle. Like, it's just fickle because also the person that said, I'm not judging a female. It's just that she's looking at hundreds of pictures and hundreds of profiles and she doesn't care any more than he does. So ultimately, she's just going, oh my God, has he got, everything in the right place at a head? Yeah, brilliant. Ultimately, I mean, for girls, we're not aiming for a lot. Like, girls aren't asking for much here. And they're just going, the guy owns a suit and he's not in court. That's a good start. I mean, that's what Tinder is.
He's not holding a fucking massive fish.
Exactly. So if I can take him away from these massive traps and put him in a place where they go like, he's got a suit and he doesn't wear it in court. He looks like he has friends and smiles sometimes, and he's a normal person with hobbies. You are probably in the 20% of men.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, for me, it's interesting because when it comes to these dating profiles, I have a very polarizing image. So I've got a great big beard, I've got a load of tattoos, and I've got my hair like a Viking. So for me, it's like the opposite prospect. You're aiming to polarize people. When I write a profile, I want to pick a couple of images that purposely make you decide. So they stop you for a second because you're going to see like loads of guys who look very similar. And you're going to be like, yeah, bloke with a fish left, bloke with a fish left. Quite a handsome chap. Right. For me, what I need you to do is stop long enough that you have to make a decision. And if I can do that, then that's the hack for Tinder. Except, again, what we're talking about, all of a sudden I've dropped into this entire nightmare situation where I am playing this game. And I don't want to be part of the game.
Yeah. with you.
I agree, but apps still can't go in. But you're I'm not getting rid of the apps.
It's because the dating apps are Phil's primary hobby. I now have so much free time because I'm not dating at all till next February, and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with myself? Bill, on the other hand, is pro dating apps.
We're co-hosts on a dating podcast. If I get rid of the dating, then what am I going to do?
I don't know if you're ever going to publish the video, but I've literally got my hand on my face.
he has. He's like,
what I just said brings back the worst memories because it just becomes a huge game, and it's not real, and it's even more. What's the word for it? It's even worse than your Instagram and your Facebook and the rest of it.
It's like so contrived. Like the whole thing is so immensely contrived.
And the thing is, though, is there are so many beautiful like men that are friends of mine that don't know how to put a profile together and aren't savvy about those kind of things. That are just that if they met you in a bar and you gave them 5 minutes of your time, you'd walk away happier. Yeah, and that's the bottom line.
Getting back to that and getting back to actually meeting people in person.
Also, can you compile a list of them to deliver to me on February the 14th, 2022?
Absolutely. Well, we've just shown with the 80-20 rule that you are, I can provide you with 4.
Done. I think there are like at least 4 days in the week, right?
Well, there you go then. Enjoy yourself.
Final thoughts. This segment is called Final Thoughts. Basically, we take a look back at the episode and we each pick something that we'll take away from it or something that we have learned.
So here we are at Final Thoughts, the part of the show where we each give one thing that we've learned or will take away from this podcast. Liz, off you go.
So, final thoughts. Do you know what really stood out to me while we've been talking today is what you explained about the kind of 80-20 thing and how a lot of guys are in a really quite a tricky position. And I'm sure there's some comparison for women as well. But I think that as a woman, that is not necessarily something that you think a lot about because, well, you don't really have to. But I think this point that there's a lot of guys who are sort of on the good side of fine, who are being overshadowed by the small number of like dazzling guys who actually have got a bit of a hard time of it, really. And I think that also helps me to understand a little bit, not give them a free pass, but to understand a little bit of the like kind of hostility that you can get as a woman when you maybe don't want to take something further with somebody, or we don't reply to their message, or you don't want to see them again, because actually that's potentially quite a frustrating situation for them if they've already had to put in like that amount of work to get to that point in the first place. That's really, really informative for me.
Yeah.
Phil, how about you?
Me? I'm going to take away about female-led relationships and actually have a look more into that because I do actually like the sounds of it. And it seems like it's worked a lot with your family in the past. So it's got proven results, really. And yeah, I'm definitely going to have a look into that and look down that path. So, Richard, what would be your final thought that you've got from the show?
I think it would be about, I'm going to call it like inbox hygiene. I think it would be, you have to consider the benefits of like a better way of dealing with like conversations and discussions that happen within your DMs or whatever, just to give yourself perhaps the best possible chance of improving things with people who have potential.
Yeah.
Nice. I like
Very
it.
good.
Do you know what's also helpful? A calendar with February the 14th, 22 marked on it.
And then me constantly reminding her how many days she's got left.
Phil's ticking them off for me. Bad times.
I feel like there's a lot of women who listen to this and they're like, I'm not getting laid till then anyway. So get on,
join the
get
club.
on with it, sister. We're all in this together.
Fair point. Great. So, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We've had a real blast.
Just one more thing, 305 days, okay? 305 days, that's all you got to wait.
Fucking long, isn't it?
You don't use it, you lose it, so...
That is really... That is a tremendous risk.
What are you not using, though, that you're going to lose?
I don't know what I even had in the first place.
Like, for me, what, like, I'm not going to... Oh, God. Richard, I don't even want to ask myself these questions.
Not even worth it.
I told her she can't date because it would completely ruin this podcast, because we've got someone that doesn't date and somebody that dates a lot. So she's definitely not allowed to date until February the 14th, 2022.
I want some more background on why this non-dating is necessary. I want to know about your life. I want to know, like, how you've booked these dates up, all these horrible people that you've met.
I mean, I could talk for many hours about it.
Listen to episode 1.
Yeah, tell me about it. 305 days, though. Fuck.
There we go.
Thanks for that.
I'm always here to reality check.
You're always here to be the date-free year fucking police.
Yep.
So I want to say a massive thank you, Richard, for coming on the show today. It's been a real blast talking to you and picking your brain about all things dating. Do you want to tell our listeners where they could find out more about you, or where they can slide into your DMs or not?
Yeah, I'm just Clicky Ricky on Instagram. I'm not giving you my TikTok. Just look for the guy who looks like he's unattractive, but then takes his shirt off and he's got a six-pack.
We will be sharing those stories on our Instagram.
So yeah, just on Instagram. Just drop me an email if you want to have any questions. You want to talk fitness. But to be honest, I just thank you everyone for just giving me time on this podcast and just in general time to talk, because I wouldn't be as healthy as I am if I didn't have the opportunity to kind of express myself like I do.
Thank you for coming on. It's been amazing.
It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone for listening.
So, next week's episode is just me and Liz. We'll be talking about TV, about Netflix, about Prime, about everything like that, and all those TV episodes that make you watch and go, wow, I wish my life was like that when it comes to dating.
If you'd like to get in touch, then you can do, whether that's to submit a dating disaster, ask a question, or ask for some advice. We're not that good at helping, but one of our guest experts will certainly be able to. So if you'd like to get in touch, head on over to our socials.
On Facebook and Instagram, it's at Unhinged and Bumbled Up.
On Twitter, it's at Bumbled Up.
Or by email, it's unhinged.and.bumbledup@gmail.com.
If you liked the episode, then please don't forget to like and share, and click the follow button above.
We also now have a website, www.unhingedandbumbledup.co.uk. See you all next week.
wrongThe.com.